Hi, I'm Ksenia from the Rediskot blog, and this is how I made my reference doll called Boonka for an animation short I'm working on. So I will be using Fimo, which is oven hardening modeling material, according to the pack. A floral wire for the armature, the base, the skeleton. I'll be cutting it with the scissors. Then I'll be using tinfoil as filler under the clay, and then wool, which will be needle felted with these needles into the body, glued a little bit on the edges, and random tools from the table for sculpting. So at first I cut some wire, which is basically double the length of the spine and then some for extra bits. I wrapped some tinfoil around the middle of the wire and then rolled the whole thing into a ball and then covered it with clay. This makes the head lighter than it would be if the entire thing was just filled with clay, and you end up using less clay, if that matters. Actually does for bigger projects, I suppose. Now, my camera stopped working for a bit, so you don't see me putting the eyeballs in and then shaping the cheeks, but it's very straightforward. And here I'm just giving her a forehead implant and making sure the area around the eyes and the forehead is nice and smooth, because I had to add extras in there. Boonka's head is a funny shape, so droopy cheeks, lots of weird eyebrow meaty bits. Right now the head is looking very flat because I'm just concentrating on the front view to make it look as close to the sketch I made before. This is the back of the head, which you can't see in the sketch, but it's there. The clay is very tough, so I'm having to work around not being able to just take a bit and attach it, and I use the round end of my paintbrush to smooth things out, and fingers, but brush is a lot more effective. The neck, which comes out at a rather weird angle from her body, I suppose, because she has really bad posture, and the neck needs to be a little bit thicker and stronger. It has a very strong neck, like tortoises do, I suppose. More smoothing, and here I'm attaching the eyelids, the really puffy, baggy eyelids that might be bags under her eyes, but they're actually eyelids. There's a lot of smoothing and attaching and making sure everything sticks to where it's put. I'm not going to do anything super fancy with her face because the facial features, they'll be changing. I'll be animating that, so I only need the general proportions. I first wanted to make her ears look special and unique, with all that ear detail that makes one ear special and stand out in a crowd. So since I had no idea how to sculpt ears properly and I had no reference in front of my face, I just laid out random sausage shapes onto an ear-shaped pancake. And as I'm attaching them to the head, it loses all that fine detail, and all that squishing and squashing just made me think, what the heck, might as well just go all the way and take a paintbrush to them. So she ended up with half pancakes attached to the sides of her head. I thought it would be nice to have Boonka stare longingly into your soul as I am making her hands. I said stare longingly. Yes, okay. Now the trick of making hands that look similar is to use similar amounts of material. for both hands. So before doing anything, I just divide my clay into sort of equal looking piles. I do the same with the wire. I cut it into two sort of similar lengths, fold it twice, and then start working on the hand shape. I decided to just bend the wire into the outline of a hand and then twist the fingers into place. It's very, very anatomically correct. This is exactly what hands look like. And then the tin foil just for the base of the palm to thicken it out a little bit. For larger hands, I might also put tin foil around the fingers, but these are tiny and it doesn't make that big of a difference, just makes it a little bit easier to work with. Now, another trick of making hands look alike is to first do the base for both hands before adding the clay. This way, you can put one next to the other and fix it like I do here, because the thumb is way, way too big. Now they're close enough. Just fixing the fingers a little bit more. And now that you have two identical hand bases, you can start sausaging them up with the clay, because fingers are basically just sausages coming out in a pretty flower shape from a wire base covered in tin foil. Now, another nice side effect of using the wire base is that you can also shape the hand into a pose, I suppose, much more easily. Where if you're not using anything for the base, the fingers tend to fall off or maybe stretch or get squished into the wrong length. So it just makes everything overall much more controlled. The usual smoothing with a paintbrush. As you can see, this is a very, very realistic looking hand. And there's the more smoothing. And then for the wrists, I put a little bit of extra clay in there because this is where I'll be gluing them to the woolly arm to make sure the hand just doesn't randomly pop out. And now, yes, finishing touches in between the fingers. You can see a little bit of wire showing, but it's not all that important for my purposes. I only need the general size of the hand, really. And of course, fingernails. I definitely need reference for fingernails. Now, as for the foot, I am not going to be putting wire into the toes. I will not be positioning the toes into funky root shapes. I'll be just the base, and the toes are tiny, short sausages. Again, both feet, before you cover them with clay, you want to make sure they look at least a little bit similar to each other, with the difference being one is left, the other one is right, of course. There we go. I can start covering them in clay. Actually ended up with one foot magically bigger than the other, but oh well, spoilers. Again, for the feet, same as for the hands and same as for the neck, I added a little bit extra so that I have room to stick the woolly leg onto the foot without covering most of the foot. And there are the little toes, like in that song, head, shoulders, knees and toes. Only there are no shoulders or knees, just head and toes. And hands, head, hands and toes, hands and toes, hands and toes, and toenails, definitely toenails. very, very important. And there we go. Now I'm going to make the second hand and foot off camera, magically like so. There we go. And then I thought that I should add a little bit of color to her eyeballs, just so that, you know, crazy eyes have a much stronger effect staring into your soul. And a little bit of color for the face is never a bad thing, I suppose. Now, I won't be painting her face and making it look all realistic, because I'll just screw it up and then it's going to annoy me for as long as I see it, but this is a nice compromise of sorts, I suppose. Now I'm going to bake her in my oven. It used to be an oven I used for food, and then we got a bigger one, so I'm using a separate one for baking clay. It's not advised to bake your clay and your pizza in the same oven. So off to the oven we go then. Okay, now that she's out of the oven, properly baked, everything hardened the way it's supposed to, I'm now attaching the arms and the legs onto all the other bits. So just getting the length I want and then twisting the wire around itself. Same goes for the second arm. And this is from this point on, I cannot make the arms any longer unless I take all the wires apart. This is the length of her arms, and I'm not quite sure what I was thinking with this weird hip bone, but hey, it works. Just making sure the leg is the right length and just twisting it around and back on itself. And this is basically the base, the skeleton of the doll. Now my needles come in two sizes. There is a larger one and a smaller one, and I just divided them into the smaller and larger. And you want to start off with your bigger needles and stab with those. For those unfamiliar with needle felting, the needle has really small cuts all over the edge, the needle bit, and as you stab the wool gets stuck in the little cuts and then pushed into further into more wool and kind of gets stuck there. If you do it enough times, and it shapes the wool into a harder, tougher badass piece of wool, I suppose. There, the gluing of the neck. I could have attached it at any point, but I wanted to know how it would hold up and if I would need to glue it some more, since I haven't done this in quite a while. So there, I'm attaching the top of the body onto the neck, and then there will be even more stabbing, and basically for the rest of this video I'll just be stabbing the doll with large, very sharp needles. There'll be wool going on the arm and glue over there and all over those bits I just pointed to. Okay, so like I promised, all those bits are covered with wool. There was quite a bit of stabbing going on. As you can see, there isn't enough wool on one of the legs. This bit is wonky and really thin, so I'll need to add more later on. But for now, I am going to be putting the stripes in that match her beautiful eyes. First I thought of leaving it all white, but then I figured that a little bit of color and the stripes would add a little bit more volume to the animation, and it would be nice to be able to look at them and count them and make sure I don't misplace any stripes on the way. So just stabbing them onto her now. And as I'm putting the blue stripes, I also added some white in places that it needed to be added, like the leg and one of the arms and around the shoulders a bit, just to even things out. and I'm not going to be going full ham with the needle felting on this doll because I don't want her to be too tough, too hard. I want her to be soft and squishy so that I can bend her any way I like. And yeah, I don't really need it to have a polished, finished look. So I'm just stabbing it enough to hold things in place without anything falling off. And this is just that's just the preparation stage. And here we go. This doll is more or less finished. I might keep stabbing her a little bit more because it's so fun, but that's it. I can squish her and she can move her limbs, and as you can see, you can still see the holes from the needle. So say in a fully finished needle felt creation, you should not be able to see those holes that I'm now showing you, because when it's finished there are no holes. That's one of the ways to tell when it's ready. And she's all twisty and bendy and fluid in her movement, I guess. And here you can see in profile she has no nose. This is a big mistake on my part, and something I'm going to have to keep in mind and correct in the animation to come. And that's it. Next I'll be making her a coat.